There is a secret reason why the oldest species in the cosmos never stepped foot near Sol 3. They did not leave Earth alone out of mercy. They left it out of absolute terror. And today, 1 trillion alien conquerors are about to find out why. For 12,000 years, the Valakor hegemony ruled the outer galaxy with an unbroken chain of blood and subjugation. Their grand fleet, boasting 300 world-destroyer dreadnoughts, silently dropped out of hyperspace right at the edge of the human solar system. On the bridge of the flagship, Imperator Valen stared at the blue planet, a cold smile forming across his obsidian scales. Their sensors registered simple orbital stations, kinetic point defenses, and primitive fusion reactors, offering no visible threat.
"They are barely a Class II civilization," Valen sneered, his deep voice echoing through the command deck filled with absolute disdain. "Send no terms of surrender, disable their communication arrays, and enslave the survivors. This world dies before sunset." The massive armada surged forward in an impenetrable defensive wall, completely unaware that the quiet void ahead was watching them back. Suddenly, as the lead dreadnought crossed the orbit of Neptune, every single navigation screen on 300 ships turned pitch black. The hum of their massive antimatter engines died instantly, plunging the armada into an eerie, suffocating silence. "Report," Valen demanded, his claws digging deep into his iron throne, a sudden flicker of unease piercing his arrogance.
"My Emperor, our sensors didn't fail," his chief officer whimpered, his voice trembling uncontrollably. "Space itself is warping around us." Far out in the dark void, the primitive human stations did not fire rockets, nor did they launch fighters. Instead, the small metallic structures began to unfold, revealing vast, ancient rings of glowing obsidian hidden deep beneath their hulls. And as those rings began to spin, the cold darkness of space behind the Valakor fleet slowly opened its eyes. Out of the tearing fabric of reality, a single human warship materialized, overshadowing even the largest alien dreadnought. It carried no shields, no visible energy cannons, and no armor plating known to galactic science. Its hull was forged from collapsed neutron star material. "Impossible," Valen whispered, rising from his throne, his blood running ice cold as he looked at the massive tactical readings. "Their technology isn't primitive. They were suppressing their own power signatures, masking what they truly are." A single transmission pierced through the hegemony encryptions, bypassing every firewall instantly. A calm, chilling human voice resonated inside the minds of every alien crewmate. "You crossed into the dead zone. Now pay the toll." Before Valen could scream an order to attack, the void around his frontline ships simply collapsed into localized black holes. 50 Valakor battlecruisers were crushed into microscopic dust in less than 2 seconds, without emitting a single sound. Desperate, the remaining fleet fired their planetary annihilation beams. The scorching white fire struck the single human vessel, only to be completely absorbed, powering its unseen internal core. "Their shields don't block energy!" the chief scientist shrieked, clawing at his console in absolute panic. "They devour it!" The black human warship pulsed once, releasing an invisible wave of gravitational distortion across the remaining fleet. And with that single effortless pulse, 100 more alien warships ceased to exist in this dimension. On the shaking bridge of the flagship, Valine watched his unbeatable army fall apart like dry leaves in a storm. "Why?" He howled at the view screen, his pride.
30,000 years ago, we burned the original masters of this galaxy, the commander said, his voice flat and devoid of any emotion, and chose to sleep so the universe could heal. We didn't hide behind primitive technology to protect ourselves from you, Imperator. We hid it to protect you from us. A collective gasp of horror echoed across the dying alien fleet as the horrifying truth finally sank into their minds. "Turn the fleet around!" Valen screamed frantically. "Engage emergency jump drives! Fall back to the home system!" The remaining 50 ships ignited their hyperspace engine. They were trapped in a dark cage of their own making, helpless against an ancient predator that hadn't even unleashed its true arsenal. Slowly, silently, thousands of smaller human craft began to uncloak around the trapped ships, surrounded by halos of dark energy. Each tiny human fighter carried enough localized antimatter to erase an entire star system from galactic maps. The conquerors of 3,000 worlds were now nothing more than cornered rats waiting for the blade. Admiral Vance, standing on the bridge of the human flagship, raised his hand slightly toward his tactical officer. "Shall we wipe out their home system as well, Admiral?" the officer asked, her voice calm. Vance looked at the trembling hologram of the alien emperor. "No," Vance replied softly, his eyes reflecting the dark coldness of the deep void. "Leave their flagship intact. Disable their weapons. Strip their hyperdrives, and let them limp back to their High Council on sublight thrusters. Let this emperor be the messenger who tells the rest of the cosmos what happens when you wake the monsters of Sol." 3 months later, a single battered alien flagship limped into the central hub of the Valakor hegemony. Imperator Valakor